great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail. Welcome back to Season 2 of The Secret World of Events. And today I'm joined by two very special guests. I have with me the very lovely Sarah Balfour of Orchid Events. And I'm delighted to say I've got Rick Perry, the Managing Director of By Word of Mouth. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Ditto. Thank you very much for having us.
Wonderful.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Sarah, we have known each other for a number of years, worked together on a couple of jobs. I'd just like you perhaps to introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us who Sarah Balfour is and the two companies that you look after.
So I'm Sarah Balfour. I'm the Director of Music by Arrangement and Orchid Events. I set up Music by Arrangement in 2003. It was inspired by my love of music. I'm a pianist and I worked as a musician for about 12 years, touring, concerts, session work.
Not a singer, though, you told me.
No, really bad singer. Really bad.
We'll come to that in a second.
Oh, no.
And Rick, for you, wow. I'll let you tell the story. You go back a long way in this.
Going back, well, yeah, we were just talking before we came on air. So, yeah, sorry, my name's Rick Perry. I'm the MD of By Word of Mouth. And this was a job which I was meant to do for 6 months before I got a proper job. Unfortunately, that was nearly 25 years ago. And so I obviously have stayed with the company the whole way through. It's a passion I love. It's a drug, I think, that you have in terms of doing events. And so, yeah, By Word of Mouth is an event caterer based in London.
I mean, not just an event caterer, are you? You're very much the top end of the royalty of event catering, I would say.
Well, that's very kind of you to say so. I think we all work very hard to deliver the very best that we can do. So I'm surrounded by the most amazing, talented chefs and talented people. And together we produce fantastic events. And we work with lovely people like Sarah who give us the opportunity to put on amazing events. So
fabulous. So now, Sarah, I've invited you today, and in turn, you've invited Rick. Why have you invited Rick as your buddy?
So, working in the events sector, it's really important to have a good team of suppliers that not only produce a fantastic result on the day, but that are fantastic to work with throughout the lead up towards the event. It needs to be somebody that I'm working with that can kind of is happy to work in challenging situations for all kinds of events, be it weddings, bar mitzvahs, birthdays, anniversaries, corporate functions. And I find with By Word of Mouth that they are on a very, very high level of service, and the standard of everything they do is second to none. So I know I've got that kind of comfort knowing I've got the A-team on this job. I don't have to worry. And that's what's so important when you're running an event, that you've got a brilliant team. All the suppliers need to be brilliant.
Yeah, it's one of the things that's come up across the sort of the two seasons of The Secret World of Events is you're only as good as your suppliers, aren't you? In terms of the trusted teams that people put around themselves. Rick, how does that play out? Because for yourself, it extends down to chefs, waiting staff. I mean, you've got to design the food.
Yeah. The whole thing is that it's a massive collaboration. And I was just sort of thinking, being asked by Sarah to sort of work on events is a bit like sort of being asked to be a best man. It's a great honour, but do you necessarily, know what the challenge is that's going to come with it? But I think like anything, you've got to, events is such a fluid sort of industry. Everything, it's such a cliche. It's got to be right on the night. There's no dress rehearsal. You just have to surround yourself with people that you trust, that have got that same passion and that sort of quality control just as a sort of a gene in them to want to deliver the best that they can. And so it's a huge collaboration and it's a partnership.
Sarah, for you, where did it begin? I mean, I need to sort of just let the viewers know. So I know you said at the outset you have Orchid Events and you have Music by Arrangement. So you very much take care of the sort of event planning side, but being a musician, you're very much into the music. Please explain to everybody, tell everybody the difference between the two parts of your world.
So Music by Arrangement is a music agency, and we look after, we've got a portfolio of about 700 musicians and entertainers. So that's anything from pianists to bands to DJs to acts that I've put together myself, like the Hat Pack, which perhaps you'll show later on.
Yep.
To dancers, to Cirque du Soleil acts, any manner of things. So there's 700 acts in the book.
Wow.
And that got set up in October 2003. And I used to audition artists every Monday night in a little bar in Hampstead called Bedlam. I don't know if you remember that.
Bedlam,
many years ago.
I do. I had hair then.
So I set that up then. And then after working in music for so long, I began to get quite frustrated that I was always chasing my money. I didn't know when my next gig was. I felt a bit unsettled in the industry. As much as I loved music and performing, I decided, no, I'm going to set up an agency where artists are treated totally fairly, and I'm going to do it my way. And it was literally a 24-hour success.
There was an inspiration to start all this, wasn't there? This chap on the screen here.
Oh, yeah. So this is my great-grandfather, Al Tabor, who was a famous band leader in the 1940s. And he was a composer as well. He wrote the Hokey Cokey.
Do you know what? You always think, who on earth wrote the Hokey Cokey? And by the way, I'm now going to ask you the very obvious question.
Oh, no.
Do you receive royalties in perpetuity for the Hokey Cokey?
So here is the story. So my great-grandfather wrote this and didn't think that it was going to be the huge success that it ended up being, and sold it for £90.
Which probably, back in the day, 90 quid might have been a lot of money. Or not?
Not so much. I mean, yes, it wasn't bad, but it's, I mean, considering where we are today with this song. So unfortunately, I feel that he made a really bad business decision there.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So I was quite inspired by this story because I thought I'm never going to undervalue myself.
Yeah.
That coupled with my work as a pianist, a solo artist, working also as a session musician. It's a tough old industry, the music world, as any musician will openly agree with. So I decided that, right, I'm going to use this as a, positive experience. And I set up Music by Arrangement. And what I really make sure of on all my events is that the musicians are looked after. They are fed, they get enough breaks, that they've got everything that they need.
Sure. Which also led into Orchid events. So you do the all-round planning as well.
After a few months of Music by Arrangement, I think having played at so many different high-end events myself, I always kind of noticed the decor, the presentation of the food, the flowers, everything. And I thought, I could do this. And I started getting busy. Oh, I wouldn't have done it like that. Oh, I'd have done it like this. And so my mind was ticking back then. And then one of my clients who I was providing music for said, can you help plan the whole event? And I said, sure.
Yeah.
And then ever since then...
You're off and running.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Rick, for you, food, how did you end up in food?
That's a very good question. Well, key thing is I can't sing. I didn't even get grade 1 on the piano, the clarinet, or the guitar, which were all instruments.
Ruled out your rock career.
So music was not a thing.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I probably can't bake a bean either. But what I do is surround myself with amazing chefs and amazing people who can do all of that side of things.
But in '96, you didn't start off by running things, so you had to start somewhere.
No, so, exactly. So I graduated, travelled, was going off. I actually one day thought I was going to be doing something else, and so when I joined by word of mouth, it was as I said before, a 6-month job before going off and going to the career that I thought I'd do. What I got was the bug. And what I got was the constant excitement, being in different places. We work in some of the most spectacular places, be it, a Royal Palace, Kensington Palace, or the Natural History Museum, or the Royal Academy, where you get to go into these places and you get to transform them. But actually, also the most exciting part about that is you get to go in them and experience them when there's not a soul in there. So that sort of 5 minutes before the guests arrive, you're in the most amazing sort of environment. But I think the real buzz is just delivering for our clients, making sure you're sort of just working in an environment where, as my sort of children have said before, you've got the most amazing job in the world. You make parties.
Yes.
And, and you have to remind yourself that a lot when you're sort of running around at 4 o'clock in the morning, chasing something or doing something. But
there's an enormous amount of stress and pressure that comes with events as well, because as you alluded to earlier, it's there's no dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
It's lights, camera, action, and no director says, stop, can we just bring that tray out again? Exactly. How do you cope? How do you both cope with the stress and pressure of live events?
For me personally, I always try not to show that if I'm feeling any pressure or stress, which I usually am feeling, but I like to think a quite job of looking quite relaxed. Outside of work, I do lots of dog walking, I do yoga, mindfulness, and this all helps to kind of keep me calm. I suppose I'm quite a philosophical type of person, and I've, having done this for 20 years now, I've seen quite a lot. I've done quite a lot of events in that time, and you just kind of get used to knowing how to run the show.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, nothing. I was going to say, I suppose having had a career as a performer, even though I'm running an event, I'm not on the stage anymore, which is still quite weird for me. But you still have to perform that everything is fine, under control, even if there's little issues going on behind the scenes, perhaps. As far as the client and the guests are concerned, everything is absolutely fine.
And for you, Rick?
I think, planning, obviously, again, we talked about it before, surrounding yourself with amazing sort of suppliers and people that you trust and that share it. But actually, I feel like you need that stress sometimes. Any event I go to, I will get butterflies because you want to deliver the best that you can. You know how important it is for the client. So I suppose there's a bit of a drug in there that goes, well, you must quite like that, Rick. You must respond to that. And when you're on an event, it's from start to finish that you're basically thinking, right, okay, what could possibly go wrong? So the best feeling is when you've gone through all the things which you think could possibly go wrong and worked out how to sort of square that off and make sure that doesn't go wrong. You know that something down the line probably isn't going to be perfect. But what you've done is planned all the other bits that you can react to it and you can do it. But I think if you weren't stressed, you wouldn't care. And if you don't care, you're in the wrong industry.
Yeah, you're doing the wrong job, aren't you?
Yeah.
What would you say is the best part of what you both do? What do you most enjoy about your roles and the events industry itself?
For me, it's the people. It's the people I work with, the team that I have, and very often the clients as well. It's a combination of all of that together. It's all about the people.
I like the way you said very often, but not always. Very often, I like the clients.
99.9.
Listen, we're in a world where we sometimes do have, some difficult, stressful situations and clients. This is the secret world of events. We're here to lid the lid on some things, and everybody knows in life people can be a little bit. They're stressed as well. We're there sometimes to take away their stress. What about for you, Rick?
I think in terms of sort of what Sarah said, it's 100%. It is the people. It's the people that you work with. It's the people that you work for. I think one of the really exciting bits is that you have different people. Some people come to you with a blank piece of paper and say, "Okay, I have no creativity. Please go. Come up with any idea. Come up with any menu. Come up with anything." And that is really, really exciting. Other people come up with the most amazing ideas that you have to basically say, "Okay, right, it's not quite Hollywood, as in there's real life is involved with this as well."
Yeah.
But you're sort of managing the expectation. But it's that moment. I think we all have it when you're on an event and you've gone through it all and you know that it's gone well. You have that sort of satisfaction. You can see how happy the clients are. You can see how happy everyone is.
Yeah.
Atmosphere is the key thing to any party. Yeah. So just getting that satisfaction.
I want to talk to you both about finding creativity, because we're in a world where everybody wants to push the boundaries. Everybody wants something different to the next person. I would imagine you're both a big mixture of corporate and private events. Yeah. And maybe corporate's a little bit easier because it feels like it, to me it is. But where do you find creativity to keep improving, to keep pushing boundaries on your events and your food?
So for me, it could come from anything. It could come from a piece of music. It could come from a dream. It could be from a beautiful painting. It just comes. Often ideas come to me while I'm asleep and it will wake me up, and then I'll need to scribble it down so I don't forget it, and then I'm awake for the rest of the night. So it can happen at any time. My brain just doesn't seem to switch off, which is quite exciting and also quite tiring.
Sure, but are you looking always to mix up your events a little bit? Because I know I've certainly, when I look perhaps at social media and I see a certain planner, you can always see that or feel there's a certain theme or a certain feel, a distinctive character of their events. Whereas I look at others and I think, wow, unique, a little bit unique. In terms of sort of looking at the clients and listening to their brief, is that an important part?
Yes, I think the key is to listen. I was asked the other day for another interview, what is your signature style? And the signature style is that I listen to my client's brief and I try and make their vision a reality on the day and also exceed their expectations at the same time. So it's not about my style or my vision or how I like to do things.
Life.
It's bringing very much getting in their head. There's a lot of psychology involved in what we do. In fact, it's mostly psychology. In fact, a psychology degree would be more useful than an event planning degree.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think people always ask, by word of mouth, what's your style? And we don't have a specific style. Our style is quality and making sure it's the absolute best that it can be, but we won't put forward our ideas onto the client. And one of the really exciting bits about the whole creativity is that sort of opportunity to start with that, as I said before, that blank piece of paper. But we work really hard to make sure that we've got lots of ideas sort of behind the scenes. So, we have Claire, who does all our sort of creative design with the menus. We've got Harry, who's our head of design. We've got Mark, who's our executive head chef. And, when we get given a brief, sometimes, as I say, we did a brief the other day, and the theme was connection. And it was kind of like, well, what sort of connection do you mean? And you start with a blank piece of paper and you look at, okay, we're talking about connection of people, are we talking about connections of your history? And so we sort of brainstorm these ideas, and actually that's really, really exciting. And
because I am now sitting here thinking, okay, connection. I'm thinking food. I'm thinking, where on earth do you even start with the theme of connection? And then I'm thinking, Connect 4?
Yeah, well, that's what I came up with. I got shut down pretty quickly with that. But I mean, exactly. It's, I think we came up with a sort of connection of, going through the ages, so your association with childhood food and that sort of thing. So obviously we're all foodies, so that's why we go with that.
And specifically on the food side of things, what I have noticed, obviously since you've been around for 25 years, I would probably say...
Stop saying that.
I will. Please, Well, you look so young. I would say in the last 10 years, I feel like food has gone to another level of presentation of, whether it be the dry ice, the smoking pops. Yeah. There is such theatre around food now.
I think theatre is really, really important. I think the quality ingredients is the key, though. It's really important not to sort of get carried away with the gimmicks at the sort of, and then end up with a cold piece of meat on your plate. It just doesn't work. Food has got to first and foremost taste delicious and be deliverable. But yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, I think nothing more so than a whole sort of plant-based range of menus and things like that. So again, our chefs work, they do a lot of research and development all through the year to design specific menus. We've got the most talented pastry chef. We can do the most incredible vegan puddings that you'd put in front of someone, they wouldn't.
That's been a big game change, hasn't it?
Massive.
The use of milk replacements, dairy replacements.
Exactly. And I mean, the skill in terms of being able to do that, and and again, we sort of have clementine chocolate, pudding, which is completely vegan, and you just wouldn't know it. And again, it's a big part of the trend that people are asking for those sorts of inclusion in their menus, and we've done entirely vegan or plant-based events, and that's a real talent, because again, you're working with product that you really got to inject the flavour and work with the product there. So
I'm always fascinated by food, probably because I think it's the hardest end of the events we attend. I always wonder, Sarah, how someone can come out and decide they want to serve 500 hot meals at once when I can't do 3. And I know it's not just a skill, it's all about the organisation, the planning, and the skill set to put that out.
And then you can add another complication and be at a venue where you can't access until like 5 o'clock.
Correct.
And have 2 hours to set up a kitchen, get the whole room set up and ready.
Or you work with Sarah, and then you're trying to serve the food in between 25 different acts that are all,
That's true.
Oh, I've just got a magician coming on here. Oh, and no, we've now got a singer. But if you could just squeeze it, but that's half the fun, and it is.
It is half the challenge. But I do sit there thinking sometimes, goodness, this speech is running on. The cake, I'm sure they're going to want to bring main course out. They must be standing there waiting, and it's beef, and surely.
Yeah. So you could have. I mean, I could be on a radio to Sarah, and I was like, Sarah, how much longer is the speech going to go on for? And she's like, well, I don't know. I'm not doing the speech. And then I have a chef the other end. Well, if the speech doesn't finish in 3 minutes, then we're gonna. But the whole point is you be flexible. You work around it. You find a way.
Absolutely. I'm going to flick through some images of some of the a recent event perhaps you two have done together. Let's kick off with Abbey Road, because Abbey Road is obviously synonymous for you and famous for music.
Yeah.
Must have been a joy for you to work there.
Absolute joy. It's nice to go back there on the event side rather than just the music side. Not that I don't love being there on the music side.
Yeah. So explanation needed, please, on this photo.
This was a
that one.
yes.
Thanks.
That one,
God.
yes. So this was playtime for you two, was it?
This is working hard in the in the build.
I don't know what the guests were doing at the time. We just found the photo booth and off we went. Yeah, although that's what we were dressed like for the whole.
I have to say, the pair of you, what a pose.
Oh dear.
In fact, I'm hoping this was after the event, or was it before the guests got there?
It was before.
Good
yeah.
to know
we were
you
testing it. We
were
were
both
just making
relaxed.
sure.
Yes, making sure
Good
it
to know
all
you're
works.
both relaxed. But there you are, Sarah. You're at the piano. Were you playing piano?
I
then?
did play the piano, yes.
And are you classical piano or
I'm classically trained.
classically trained?
I learnt to play all styles of music, but really my expertise lies in classical music.
Fantastic, amazing. And looking at this room, I mean, it's a very bland room because it's a studio. I mean, you're there because it's history, right?
It's so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, Abbey Road just exudes its own sort of stardust and coolness, doesn't it? And so I think, whenever we do food or anything in there, it's kind of like, actually, do you know what? Let's let the venue do the talking and let's keep the food really sort of understated and delicious, but let the venue do the talking.
And was this a corporate event? Or was this
No,
a
this
private?
was a 50th birthday party for a regular client.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Who loved music, or was it just a suggestion for you for
She
someone
likes
different?
music, but she really loved the venue, which I was delighted about. And I had this idea of turning it into a kind of Ronnie Scott's type jazz club.
Yeah.
So I had artists from Ronnie Scott's. I made it like quite a theatrical layout with long tables and the lamps, like similar to what they have at Ronnie's. It was obviously quite entertainment heavy in a really good way.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had Lior Sushad, who we flew over from Israel,
Who is
who's an
fantastic.
incredible,
It is
incredible.
amazing.
Isn't he? He's not someone you don't want to look him in the eyes. 'Cause
No,
you just think
you
he's
cannot
reading
look
my
him in the
mind.
eye.
Just
Yeah.
amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It was a total knockout. Giles Martin was there,
Yeah.
and I used to work with his father, Sir George Martin,
Right.
in my days as a musician. So I had, a lot of history at Abbey Road Studios. It has to be in my top 3 favourite venues in London for sure. So I asked Giles to come and give a historical talk
Fantastic.
to
How
the
amazing.
guests about his father and the history of the studios, and it was really special and fantastic for everybody, and also for me. And when I was playing the piano, he actually came and sat next to me while I was playing on the stage, which was very surprising.
Did he touch the keys, or did he just sat next to you?
He just sat on the stool next to me, and there wasn't much space, so I'm not sure how he managed to.
Yeah,
but he just
wonderful. Let me ask you a question on budgets. It's a question I've asked every guest that's come on. How do you manage clients' expectations when it comes to budgets? How do you work with them on their numbers? I can reword that. How do you ascertain where you need to be, sort of thing?
I think the way that we work is we try and give them a worst case scenario from the get-go. So you show everything that's possible, but explain that not everything is necessary. And I think and I think it's really important that you emphasize that, because that then gives the client the freedom to sort of pick and choose. Some clients can be really, really coy about budgets and not want to talk it. And I'd probably fall into that bracket if I was on the other side. But from our perspective, it does give us a sort of an area to work within. But if you don't get it, then I think it's important to say, look, we can do this, and this is absolutely everything, but you don't need to have everything.
Yeah.
And then you can work back from that.
Can I ask you, so I understand, sort of where does an average budget work per head for you for an event, let's say a couple of hundred people?
So it does massively vary sort of where you are. And again, it depends what you're including in the budget. So again, if we're sort of involved with the venue finding and all of that side of things, then obviously it's a massive. But if you're just looking at food, drink, staff, furniture, again, depending on whether we've got 10 minutes to set up or whether we've got a day to set up, it can start from £350, £400 a head, which is a eye-watering figure. And
it is, but it's been explained to me why over a previous episode, because you're basically hiring a restaurant, bringing the staff, bringing the tables, bringing the chairs, bringing the expertise, the ovens,
100%.
the everything.
I mean, there's certain venues. So take the V&A, for example, Victoria and Albert Museum. We are at 5:45. We haven't even set foot into the building, and at 6:30 we could be serving canapes to 200 people and setting up the dining room. And at 7 o'clock, we've got guests sitting down for dinner in the Raphael Court that has not had a chair in it. And so the amount of people that you've got to have in order to get that in, and the chefs have got to build a kitchen and put it all in. So it is, again, it just comes back to that original conversation. The amount of people you have and the trust you have to have in them and the planning that you've got to do to get it in there. It's like a military operation.
I would like to make a film one day, actually, behind the scenes of what exactly that. Because I've done plenty of time lapses, for example, at the Natural History Museum, where we see front of house, where we see the tables and chairs going in and the waiter staff putting down all the cutlery and everything else. But actually, what goes on behind the scenes, putting all the kitchens together, the chefs coming in, the food coming, it's military, isn't it?
Sorry, go on.
So I was just going to say, it's not just that, though. It's production's also coming in through the same doors with everything they've got. The musicians are coming in, the florist is coming in. So there's a whole military machine.
But then, and then you've had the conversation. You will have the conversation with the florist. Say, okay, well, these tables are going to be up at 6:43. That's when you can start to do your, and that's where that collaboration comes in, because you have to have that team ethic. You have to all know that your end game is to produce this most amazing. If
clients think that the planning of an event is simply guests arrive, welcome speech, first course, clear first course, you put an event on at the Natural History Museum where you get that sort of 6:30 deadline on your mark, get set, go,
and then they arrive early,
and then it's down to the loading bay timings.
Yeah, we did recently 600 people there, and they arrived about half an hour early.
Would that be this one?
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, it's a stunning venue to work in, but it does have its complexities, doesn't it?
It does have its complexities, which, brings me back to the point of you've got to have a good team. You've got to have a team that is well-oiled and is going to run through this very quickly, very swiftly, but carefully and thoughtfully and safely.
Yeah. When I was probably about 4 years into my journey into the events world, I used to sit there and moan to myself, saying, it's a bit one-dimensional, isn't it? All these suppliers. I see the same supplier with the same suppliers. Why don't they ever think outside the box and find somebody else to work with? But 13 years in, I realise, actually, the amount of trust that needs to be placed. And, of course, once you're sort of on that wagon of having those suppliers around you, if it works, you're gonna pursue that.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I think there are new suppliers, and I think it's always important to find new people. I think one of the benefits, look at the NHM, we've worked there for over 10, 15 years. And again, hands up, we know we've made mistakes there. But what we've done is we learn, and again, pretty sort of boring in that respect, but we are sort of fastidious in terms of having notes on everything. This, we need to do that, you need to do that, because that can save you 30 seconds to a minute, which could be crucial in terms of trying to set up an event.
Sarah, what would you say is the biggest challenge you face within your business?
The biggest challenge? Oh, you're throwing that out, haven't you?
Face or faced?
Yeah, are you talking currently or in the past?
In the past, what's the biggest challenge?
Had lots of challenges. I mean, how do I pick one? I mean, I've worked in countries where I don't speak the language and done big Indian weddings and had to find all the suppliers from scratch, interview them, choose the ones I had the best feeling with. And that all went well, but it took a lot of time. I remember I was in Portugal about 12 years ago now, and I was there every weekend for 6 months, building up a portfolio of suppliers that I could pull off these big Indian events for that week.
Yeah. And one of the things I do admire about you is you do work a lot in the Indian sort of world.
Yeah.
And some of this, I mean, colourful doesn't really cover it. It's pretty
vibrant.
It's really incredible. But you're quite well known for that as well, aren't you? You sort of found a foot in that camp.
Yes, I suppose I kind of fell into it around about the first or second year of setting up the company, and it actually came from a guy called Mazen who was at Noura. Do you remember the restaurant?
Yeah.
And because Indian people often like to have Indian catering mixed with Lebanese.
Right.
And I was doing an event at Noura, so I met Mazen, and then he started recommending me, and he was doing a wedding catering at the client's home, and the client wasn't happy with their wedding planner, so he introduced me, and ever since that event, it's led to all these others.
And for you, Rick, do you, on the food front, cater for everything, or is it specifically sort of one, not style of food, but one flavour maybe?
No, I think we're really varied. So we work with, again, our sort of chefs will come up with seasonal menus, and so we develop those. But again, we always get different briefs, and what we'll do is we'll take that back to sort of square one and design a sort of a menu specific to what the client has asked for, with all sort of tweaks and everything. And again, we also work with specific chefs, or if someone wants a celebrity chef. So we've worked with quite a few celebrity chefs, which
Have you?
Yeah, great. But sort of Claude Bosey was one which we recently sort of collaborated with, which is fantastic because they come with amazing ideas, and then what we do is we effectively sort of work it as to how you can do it when you can get into the venue in half an hour's time.
Sure. And for you, the challenges you face within the business, what's sort of the biggest challenges currently?
Well, I mean, I think sort of life after, if we're allowed to use the C word, we faced enormous challenges there as the whole industry just came back into life. And the key thing was finding the people. Again, that was the biggest.
Staffing.
Yeah.
And what about food? I mean, food costs must be through the roof.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean, everything's through the roof at the moment. And I think, what we've learnt to do is be really adaptable and agile in terms of what we do and how we do things. And I think that's really, really important. And actually, that's a challenge which we just put on ourselves all the time, is to constantly evolve the business. But really, it was attracting the people back into an industry which, quite frankly, had sort of been through a really, really challenging period, and people didn't have the confidence to come into it. But touch wood, I'd say that's getting a lot better, and we sort of got through 2022. 2022 was a phenomenal year. We were
crazy.
I mean, crazy. We were all, again, sort of all the industry was coming back to life, and so you were sort of reigniting relationships and just getting through.
It literally went from sublime to ridiculous, didn't it?
Yeah.
I actually found it very challenging last year because when it did spring back, it was hammer and tongs. Everybody was fast and furious, but also lead times are very, very short.
Actually, I completely agree, and I think that's probably is the biggest challenge now, is that what we did in 2022 was prove that we could do it with a short lead time. But the problem is that if I could make one thing perfectly sort of clear, the more lead time we get, the better the experience for everybody. But people, I get it. People were holding on to it because they were like, are we going to go into another?
Will it happen? Won't it happen?
Yeah.
But I think hopefully that will be the one thing that people sort of see, that okay, we can now put a lot of time and effort into planning.
Well, I'll ask you both. Are you starting to see green shoots for bookings, much further down the line now? Because I know we've started to see bookings now for the first time, sort of certainly into 24 and into 25. And it's only in the last few months that people have started looking way ahead again. Are you starting to see that?
Depends on the culture. So in the Jewish world, yes, I am getting for 24. But in the Indian market, it's actually quite a short lead time. Usually, it can be a couple of months, and sometimes it can be a couple of weeks.
And they're very large events,
and they're big,
aren't they?
and they're several days usually.
Yeah.
So that's why it can be quite tricky. It was certainly tricky last year to get the crockery that you wanted, the cutlery that you wanted, the chairs that you wanted, because remember, we need to order about 600 roughly. So
blows my mind,
to have
the
enough
numbers.
of this, you need enough lead time, because everyone was kind of fighting for the same cutlery or crockery.
Yeah. And for you, Rick, are you starting to see that?
I think the private market, certainly, they're much more organised. I think the corporate market, again, I think that they've seen that the industry can adapt to it, and they'll want to do so. If someone wants to do something, then they make the decision there and then, and it's being able to react to it.
What advice would you give our listeners on the podcast and our viewers on YouTube about perhaps creating a successful event? What maybe between you, 3 sort of top tips?
I would say definitely get a party planner to help you run the event, plan the event, because it's
Sarah's details are in the show notes.
It doesn't have to be me, but whoever it is, so that you've got somebody that you can trust to organise everything for you, so you can be a guest at your own party and don't have to worry about anything. And also somebody who is going to be able to pull together the right team for you and understand your vision and what you want and your budgets and your style and all of those things. Someone that can bring it all to life and that you don't have to worry about it.
For you, Rick?
I think that's a key bit. I think I was going to say you want to enjoy it, so collaborate with someone. So have either the planner, but make sure you're working with people that you trust, that have got your back, because ultimately it's such an important occasion, if it's a wedding or whatever it is, that you want to enjoy the experience of it. And so you want to know that the people that you've surrounded yourself with have absolutely 100% got your back and want it to be as successful as you do.
Yeah, I think another one you mentioned just previously actually was time.
Yeah.
The more time you have to make some good decisions and good suppliers brought to you without necessarily things being rushed, gives you time to think, time to plan, time to manage your own expectations.
Time to make an informed decision.
Yeah, I think a lot of clients come to these events, and perhaps it's probably the first event they're involved with since they perhaps got married, and then not aware of budgets, they're not aware of food costs or how much staging costs or lighting. and it's a big world out there.
Yeah, and I think also it's something to look forward to. I mean, again, my wife's brilliant. I'm a last-minute holiday booker. She's like, well, no, book it in early because you can look forward to it. And I think the more you've got it in the horizon that you know that you're going to do that, it's a sort of a process that you're going towards.
Yeah, I'm very much on the early booking now, but it's got nothing to do with that. It's now because the flights just keep going up, and you've got to book a year ahead, and then start looking forward to it. Sarah, I have a question for you. Orchestrated elegance. What does that mean to you?
So I suppose as a musician, I see everything in terms of instrumentation, sound, melody, harmony. So when I'm at an event, I'm seeing all these different components, be it flowers, catering, photographer, videographer, etc. As different parts of the orchestra, the string section, the wind section, the brass section. So I see that I'm kind of chief conductor of all of these elements and making sure everybody is performing together in harmony. So that's what I mean by that. And elegance, because I try and put on elegant events.
Yeah. Now, today's show is called Luxury and Perfection, and I feel like between the two of you, that really kind of epitomises where you are, at what end of the market are, and all that you both sort of strive for. But how do you keep pushing the boundaries? How do you keep upping your game? There's lots of competitors out there.
I'm very lucky that, having done this a long time, a lot of my clients are clients I've had for many, many years that come back with a different function. And there's a level of trust that is built between us now. And I'm given that kind of creative freedom. I'm even given the key to the house,
Literally.
like if I'm, literally, which is so lovely. And it means I kind of get what they want. I know them well enough by now to know their taste and their style. So I'm just given that freedom and I've got their trust. So I'm able to just think freely and just go for it.
And for you, Rick, how does that play out?
I think if anyone who works with me, I'm quite a competitive human being. And when it comes to sport and things like that, but what I really mean by that is that I sort of challenge myself. And then we bring in, by word of mouth, we have people who are like-minded, who challenge themselves, who want to challenge themselves to be the best that we can be. And I think, what we do is we work really hard to evolve. We just basically, every time we've done an event, we think, could we have done things better? Or how can we evolve those menus? What can we do with the plant-based menus? What can we do to sort of take it to the next level? Because that's what life's about. It's about having fun. It's about pushing yourself. It's about challenging yourself rather than just settling. And we, again, I think like Sarah, have clients, a lot of repeat clients who go, okay, that was brilliant. We did that, and that was absolutely amazing. What are we doing next year? And you're like, okay, let's go again. And we need to raise it again. And we did an event last night at the National Gallery. Amazing, lovely, beautiful client. Literally sent an email at about sort of 2:00 this morning saying that was so good. Anyway, next year, and literally in the email, we haven't even finished this event.
Don't you get time to take the praise in before they're on you about the next
exactly.
one? But isn't that lovely?
Yeah, no, and that's actually, do you know what? That's what the bug and the sort of this industry gives you, is that you have people who are wanting to sort of just have fun. I mean, it's a fun event.
And you are very much Monday to Friday as well, aren't you, in terms of daytime planning, organising, and then events, probably, I would say, a lot of evenings during the week.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think actually my wife quite likes it sort of when I am busy and out a house sort of out of her way. But yeah, you do events. We do events a lot through the week, and then at the weekends you've got events. And actually, one of the things which we've noticed more this year is that people are doing events on Mondays and Tuesdays. That's the new sort of work from home. Let's do the corporate event on a Monday.
We've seen that with weddings. Weddings were always lovely, Saturday and a Sunday. Now they are literally Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Not necessarily with us, but across sort of our side of the industry. There's a lot. People are making use of the midweek now.
Yeah.
I don't know if they think that gets better pricing.
Well, in Israel, it's better pricing at the beginning of the week. So they do weddings in Israel starting on Sunday, which is equivalent to our Monday.
Yeah.
And that would be cheaper than, say, a Thursday.
Yeah. Now, you planned your own wedding, didn't you, Sarah?
Yes.
Yeah, I got a picture of it here. You had your wedding at the fabulous
Claridge's.
Did you have a party planner?
You were busy.
Well, the party planner was wearing a white dress.
The party planner? You had to be enjoying it.
The party planner was wearing a white dress that day.
Yes, would you believe it?
So your team took care of, obviously, the running of the day for you.
Yeah.
Did you sit there and enjoy yourself?
Absolutely, I did, yes.
And how do you go about thinking about what you want, or is that an easy job for you? At my wedding, I'm going to have...
It really was very easy. I mean, I had Rob Van Helden on flowers. Can't really go wrong.
Sure.
Love Rob.
Yeah.
I've got Claridge's as my venue. I mean...
You can't
speaks
go
for
wrong.
itself.
Claridge's gets a mention on every episode of our show.
Oh, really? I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all. I had a fantastic band. I had the the Ronnie Scott's Orchestra, and it was fronted by my friend Vanessa Haynes. It's a fantastic soul singer. She was a guest as well.
Fantastic.
I had lots of musicians, friends who were there, but they got up randomly and sang to my surprise, which was lovely.
In your businesses, is there sort of one, not one business line you live by, but one motto, one ethos, is there something you sort of build your business on? Well, that was a firm blank no.
Thanks for the pre-warning on that question.
I mean, wow, Gavin, you threw that out, didn't you?
Okay, for me, it's always exceed expectations. It's always, it doesn't matter where the bar is.
Yeah, I suppose
beat
so.
expectations if they're employing us to make a film, how do we make it that bit better? Where do we find a little bit more creativity, whether it be a shot or...
Yeah, and I think, again, I think that's a sort of an important thing. I think for us, actually, it's to try and keep everything bespoke. So I think that, again, we work across 50, 60 different venues. We've worked at them a lot. Every single event's got to have its own personality. And so I'd hate it if we just rolled out the same event after and after and after. So I think it's every time we do something, what can you do to make it bespoke to the client?
I think for me, it's not that I have a motto as such. I think that I just very much throw my whole heart and soul into each and every event, to the point I get to know the client really, really well, and still have maintained relationships with clients since day one that I still see, for lunch or dinner, whatever. So for me, it's about that really, just to put my everything into it.
Yeah. And Rick, talking about the word bespoke, a lot of people throw the word bespoke or unique because it's a word, but there's very few who actually deliver that. Yeah. But you do.
Well, I think we work really, really hard to do it. And again, as I said before, with the team that you've got, the work that you put into it is the brief that you get. That's when you sit down and really engage with it. So it's understanding what you're being asked to do and coming up with the ideas for it.
There's a lot of party planners, event planners across the globe. There's a lot of caterers. How do you think you stand apart? What do you do to try and differ yourself from the crowd?
I would say for me, it's obviously my musical passion and expertise in the whole kind of entertainment world. And I think that any client that books me is going to be very interested in the musical side of what we do. I think also, on the whole, I'm a passionate person, and I think my clients see that I really put everything into it, and I think they really like that. I'm totally honest and transparent. What you see is what you get, and I think they like that.
I think honesty and transparency is a word that really needs to be inside the events industry.
Yeah. It does.
It's often thrown out in a very negative way.
It is. Yep. It really is. So I suppose I try and, make clients feel as comfortable as I can, so that they see me as, a friend that they can just talk very freely and very openly to, and know that they can lean on me and know that I've totally got their back. They can completely depend on me, completely trust me. They don't need to worry. They can rest assured it will be fine on the night. It's going to be even better than they thought. That's what
utopia, that is. By word of mouth, how do you stand apart from... There are sensational caterers out there.
Yeah, and I think we can all make amazing food and do all of that. And if you ask me what stands by word of mouth apart, I'd say it's the people. I say, when I joined the company, when it started by Janie Lloyd Owen, it was a family-run business. The one thing and the most thing which was ingrained in me was that collaboration, that, this is a company that has this family ethos, that we work together, all the moving parts, from the kitchen to the event planners to the drivers. It's one big family. And we have people who just share that passion and commitment to sort of go the extra mile and to deliver it. And that, when anybody who works in by word of mouth, that's the only thing I look for them. Do they care? Have they got that passion? They're in the by word of mouth sort of family, and they'll push it forward. And I think, I was talking to Sarah the other day, and I do think genuinely that's what by word of mouth has. We all want the greatest experience for our client, and that's full stop. That's the main thing.
That's why 25 years later... You're still sailing the ship.
Well, still challenged, exactly. That's the excitement of each day.
Is there an expectation that comes with the sort of size of budgets that you guys are given to work with? Is there an expectation from the clients that it needs to be delivered?
Absolutely there is, and there's a huge pressure as well, but that's part of it, isn't it? And I've learnt just to go with that and do the very best I can. And after years of doing it, you learn how to manage the stress and the pressure that you're put under and bring it all to life on the day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it is. I think, but it's probably pressure you put on yourself as well to deliver that excellence. I think sometimes you have clients who, they don't do it, but you just, they're so nice or whatever, you just want it to be absolutely perfect for them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What I'm seeing now as well is there's an extra pressure because there's external forces at play now, whether it be staffing, whether it be the food costs, and people are very carefully considering budgets. We're very fortunate we work in a world where we do work with very healthy budgets, but even the healthy budgets are being stretched by some of these sort of outside forces now. How do you sort of work with your clients sort of on sort of coming back to the budget, but, costs can explode. People look down a budget list and they say, well, hold on a second.
Yeah, you're right. Costs can absolutely spiral out of control. So we work with a budget document detailing everything that we think they should have that's a necessity. Yeah. And then there's the options. So then they can treat it as a shopping list and choose to add that something else outside, for example, the red carpet or whatever it is, and just treat it as an option. And then they know where they stand always, and there's no kind of surprise cost at the end. So that's something that I take very seriously. Having had experience before, I've learned that the best way of doing it is to put all your costs out there. It takes a while to get it together, but this way your client knows everything. There's no surprises. If they choose to add something, fine, but everything is there. They know the cost. It's easily added up in Excel.
It was their decision.
And it's their decision.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned it earlier, that transparency, and that's what you've just been saying. I mean, we go right down to this is the number of ovens that you need to cook this meal.
Exactly.
And I mean, some clients, don't want to know that. Other clients would love, right down to these are the hours that your staff are working.
Well, of course, that's where the expertise of 20 plus years comes in, because it was discussed in season 1 where a planner put forward a budget to a client and said, you're having a marquee, you've got a generator, we need a backup generator, because should the generator, for whatever reason, fail, we need a generator. And of course, they struck off saying, well, I'm not paying another few £1,000 to have it sitting there. And of course...
The generator. And and I've been in an event for 500 people where exactly that's happened. They had the reserve generator, but the connector then failed. So we had the whole marquee plunged in darkness, literally as we were about to serve main course of sea bass to 500 people. And then, but you're working with other people running around. 5 minutes later, it's all back up and running and doing it.
I was going to ask you for the it's a hard one, but the most memorable thing you've seen at an event, and it could be someone on stage that you personally admired, or serving royalty, or is there one moment in one of your events that stands out for you as being something you'll never forget?
I have a really memorable, but it's probably, I mean, I wouldn't say it's sort of out there in terms of the sort of celebrity side of things, but it was for a celebrity comedian we were in a room where it was wall to wall comedians, and there was you looking at tables, and you'd have Jack D talking to whoever it may be, and you just think, my God, the conversations that must be going on in there. And then said celebrity ended up sort of getting up and singing, and had some musicians who were also guests who also got up and sang. And I remember looking across the room to Alison Slater, who worked with me at the time, and we both, the musician that was singing along, so it's Stereophonics, we just both knew we both loved it. And there was just a moment we looked at each other and went, it's a pretty cool industry, this.
It is, isn't it?
It's a pretty cool industry.
It is.
And I think that's just, that was a memory from this is why you do it, basically.
Yeah. For you, Sarah?
I played at an event once, it was for Hugh Grant. It was the after party for Notting Hill. And everything was dressed 1940s style. And even I was in like a little white dress, a little blonde wig, blue eyeshadow, very pale skin. And I was playing Gershwin for 7 hours.
7 hours?
7 hours.
Do you not get a finger break?
No, there was no breaks. It was crazy. That's why I made changes with music by arrangement. You see, Gavin?
Yeah.
So Hugh Grant walks in. I've totally forgotten how ridiculous I look. And I jump up, starstruck, and demand that I get a hug from Hugh Grant.
And did you get one?
Did you get one?
I did, and he did look at me like I was really weird.
Well, I'm gonna give you back my Hugh Grant story.
Oh.
What year do you think that was? What year do you think? I think that was like 1994.
Probably a little bit later.
95?
Maybe 98. Could it be? Maybe not. Yeah, maybe.
I thought it was much earlier than that.
Don't
maybe
get me
it was.
involved,
Okay. So here's my Hugh Grant story. I worked in I was working in New York. I lived there for a while, and I'm walking down Fifth Avenue, and this chap comes towards me. I think, I went to school with you, and I shuck up my hand. Hello, how are you? I'm shaking him, and as I'm shaking his hand, and I'm thinking, oh God, I didn't go to school with you. You're Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
So I'm shaking his hand, and he said, do we know each other? I said, oh no, actually we don't. Do we? You're Hugh Grant, the actor. He said, yes, I am. He goes, you're going to let go of my hand. So I let go of his hand, and he sort of shuffled on. 2 weeks later, I was playing golf back in the UK at Stoke Poges, slashing around in the rough for a ball, and this chap comes towards me, also looking for a ball. I look up, it's Hugh Grant, and he said to me, you're the fella from Fifth Avenue.
You can shake my hand.
He said, you can shake my hand now. We now know each other. And that was
brilliant.
That is a
Hugh
good
Grant
story. That is a good story.
You've both been fantastic guests. We were all out of time for this week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Yeah,
It's
been
like
really
going
enjoyable.
it's like going to the dentist, isn't it? The thought of it is far worse. Hope you've enjoyed that episode of Secret World Events. I'm going to drop all contact details for my lovely two guests in the show notes just below, and we'll catch you on the next one. Great to have you here.
I had decided I wanted to get into events.
Don't rush into anything.
Left university and pretty much went straight into it.
It's just got to happen. So do what you need to make it happen.
I've never been one to follow rules.
We've spent a lot of time together, haven't we?
We have.
Always keeping up with trends and fads.
How do you manage that, the expectations versus the reality of budgeting?
It's always insightful to get a gauge as to what their reference point is with budget.
Pre-COVID, I didn't know what Zoom was.
You know, everything is done to a higher level.
That detail Jeremy and the band and the guys will go into, by definition, makes our life easier.
There's levels and levels, and that comes in the detail.